Be a part of the best pro wrestling podcast today by supporting the Going In Raw Patreon. You can enjoy access to the live taping of the show, exclusive merchandise, and patron-only episodes, and so much more. Support Going In Raw today. Click the link in the description. Steve here.
And Larson.
Yeah, welcome to Going In Raw Countout, the only other pro wrestling podcast that we know of that isn't, I think they're called the Perfect 10 Podcast. It's a good move on them for reaching out to us and saying, hey, we're here too.
Yeah.
Because now they're probably going to get a plug at the head of every episode of Countout now.
Yeah.
Because it's part of my spiel saying we're the only pro wrestling countdown show podcast.
Yes. But now that's not true.
Now it's not true, and because we know that, the only other one we know of is the Perfect 10.
There could be more. We don't know, though.
So this past week on Monday Night Raw,
during the Festival of Friendship,
it was anything but.
Yeah.
Concluded with a
shocking betrayal.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens turning on his best friend, Chris Jericho. We'll get to more details on this in a little bit.
Yeah.
But after that, it got us to thinking about other shocking betrayals in the world of pro wrestling.
Number 10.
10.
Ric Flair swerves the Stinger.
He actually did it twice.
Well, they were around each other a lot.
Yeah. First one started in late 1989 when Sting came to the aid of his former rival, Ric Flair.
Okay.
And by the end of that year, Sting had joined the Four Horsemen.
Woo!
I believe replacing Tully Blanchard.
Oh, okay. Do we know why Tully was kicked out?
No.
I don't really know.
Maybe he was hurt. I don't know.
The history of the Horsemen that well.
Nor do I. At Starrcade 89, they held an Iron Man tournament, round robin.
Okay.
At the end of which Sting defeated Flair, and Sting became the new number one contender for Flair's NWA World Title.
Do we know what an Iron Man tournament was?
No, but I think there's only 4 people in it.
Oh,
but it's round robin, so everybody wrestles each other.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
There's a point system and stuff.
Okay. Okay, well, we kind of do know that. Okay, that's good. It's complicated, very complicated.
So Flair confronted Sting and told him, hey, give up your title shot.
Wow.
And Sting said,
Nope.
Yep. And so Flair and the Horsemen turned on Sting at Clash of the Champions X10 Texas Shootout.
Yeah.
When pretty much it was Ole, it was Arn, and it was Rick.
Yeah.
And Ole said to him, you had a choice to make.
Ooh.
So you either give up your title shot or you're out.
I feel like
at the end of that promo, Ric Flair decked Sting.
I feel like
kind of made the choice for him, I felt like.
I feel like when Ole said that, it was a shoot.
Maybe.
I feel like half the thing those old bastards did were shoots.
Could be.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, especially Ole. Everybody said, wasn't the knock on Ole, he was like grumpy?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I feel like he was grumpy.
He seemed grumpy in this promo.
He looks like a grumpy person.
He did. So later that night, there was a steel cage match between Gary Hart International.
That's the dopest name for a faction ever.
And the Horsemen.
Steve here International. I have to write that one down.
And Sting.
Earl Smothers International.
There you go. Sting got in the ring to beat up on the Horsemen a little bit.
Ooh.
While he's getting out of the ring. Apparently he blew out his knee.
Oh, God. Ow.
And it was that knee injury that led to Luger taking his place at Wrestle War Wild Thing.
Oh, no. Oh, Wild Thing. Wild Thing.
And so Sting was out for 5 months.
Oh, my goodness.
But when he came back, he had his match with Flair, beat him.
Looks like here, according to your notes, Flair swerved Sting again in 1995 when they tagged together against Arn Anderson and Flying Brian Pillman.
Let me ask you this. You're Sting.
Yeah, I am Sting.
I'm Ric Flair.
Yeah, you are.
Woo.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so I come to you and say, okay, I need help.
Yeah.
I have a match against Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman.
Okay.
Will you be my partner? Given your history with me as Ric Flair.
It's been 6 years. Water under the bridge. We've had many orgies together since then.
But also consider this.
We've done a lot of cocaine together.
You're going to be in the ring with me, Ric Flair's best friend, Arn Anderson, as an opponent.
No, but he's an opponent.
Yeah.
We're fighting him.
But still, given the history that Flair, have with Arn Anderson, wouldn't you be a little suspect about this whole arrangement?
Well, okay. What was the impetus for why would they care about beating up Sting? What threat did Sting pose? If I'm just chilling in the locker room,
he's the franchise.
Was he the champion at the time?
No.
Well, what the hell? What does that matter then?
Well,
I'm just
making
hanging out
storylines for everybody.
I'm hanging out here in the locker room, and I'm like, oh, let me put on my face mask for the night. I wonder what's going on. I wonder if there's any matches I can hop in because it's kayfabe, and there's not like a whiteboard with me going over somebody else up there.
Yeah.
I'm like sitting here. I'm like, okay, well, so maybe somebody will come up to me with a match, or I'll just go out there and challenge somebody. And then Ric Flair, comes up to me and says, woo, and says, hey, brother, I'm going to fight Arn Anderson. Kayfabe, I'd be like, I bet he's like your best friend.
Exactly.
You would say that as Ric Flair? You'd
no,
say exactly.
No, I'd say that as Sting.
Yeah. No, I'd be like, this is how would you respond to Ric Flair in kayfabe? That's your best friend. Why are you going to fight him? Woo. Makes all sorts of sense. This is 1995. Well, yeah, still probably a lot of drugs in wrestling. Anyways, yeah, Sting's like, yeah, sure. And then, but here's the terrifying part. Flair reformed the Horsemen with Benoit joining Flair.
Yeah, so at Halloween Havoc, this tag match took place.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, Sting tags in Flair. Flair takes like 2 steps towards, I think it was Arn, turns around and just decks Sting. Just decks him.
Okay, here's my thing. Now I don't really agree with your point that, why are you gonna, this has to be said. You don't know it's set up. For all I know, Flair and Arn, they had a disagreement over some piece of strange. Who knows? But what I am gonna do is pay attention to Ric Flair's footsteps, because there's the possibility that he's going to turn around, walk towards me, and deck me.
He is the dirtiest player in the game.
Exactly. So what I would have done is been on my feet. Not probably. I can tell. I haven't seen this, but I can tell Sting was probably like getting into the crowd, trying to get them in. No.
What we like, Sting was getting beat on, and then he finally gets himself a hot tag situation.
Oh,
whereas a hot tag to Flair, and then Flair comes in, takes a couple steps, U-turns, and just decks Sting.
I would have been like, Rick, I will team with you, but you're taking the first 20 minutes of punishment, all right? Just know that in 20 minutes, I'll give you the hot tag and I'll come in here. But I want to see you I want to make sure that Arn, because I can tell if a Swerve, I've been around a while, I can tell Swerve's coming by how they're laying into.
And you've gotten me once before, Rick.
Yeah, fool me once, don't fool me again.
Yeah.
Number 9.
9.
Kevin Owens turns on Chris Jericho. This is the hottest. I think for the true wrestling fans, this is the hottest storyline in wrestling.
Yeah.
At this point, especially because they executed it. We talked about this in the Raw episode this past week. They executed in such a good manner, thanks to the Triple H.
Yes.
Don't know exactly what his involvement is.
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue involved now, as opposed to just 2 friends having a disagreement or not being friends anymore.
Let me ask you something.
It seems to run much deeper than that.
Do you think the Triple H involvement occurred because there's no Seth Rollins for their build-up?
Could be.
I think that might be the case. And that's the thing. Injuries, it sucks. It always sucks when somebody gets injured. But because they force creative to be creative, and to work on the fly, things suddenly become unpredictable.
Yes.
And I like that. It's how we got the Universal title on Owens in the first place, because Finn Balor got injured. And so things become more unpredictable. And that's why we're going to have some really interesting stuff coming up in the lead up on the road to WrestleMania here.
Yes. And especially having all this happen in the lead up to Fastlane, and Owens' match against Goldberg for the Universal title. As we've said in a couple of videos since Monday, there's so many moving pieces that could potentially be involved in that match that it makes it really interesting. And I'm not sure if it increases or decreases the odds of Owens retaining. I don't know, and I like not knowing.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I know. I do like it, especially because I'm really happy with the way they did this.
Yes.
I love that they set up this big festival of friendship as a big swerve, because you kind of, there was, obviously in the back of your head that this was it, right?
Yeah,
this was where it was going to happen. I just like that they made a big set piece about this, because it was a very important thing, and everybody played their role perfectly.
And and Owens especially added a couple extra layers to it, because you can tell he had reluctance about what he was doing.
Yeah.
As I said on the Raw recap, it was as if he entered a trance state to kind of emotionally remove himself from the situation, do what he had to do, he thought, for business. I'm assuming that's what his conversation with Triple H was about.
Yeah.
And just moving on from that.
I really hope that my hope for Kevin Owens, still having only been in what has been 2 years now?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. Jeez, time goes by quick. That he continues to add layers to his character, because we saw this with Sami Zayn and we're seeing it now with Jericho, and it would be great if he were able to add to maintain consistency, but to continue to add layers to his character.
Yeah.
There's such a great opportunity there.
I'm happy you mentioned the Owens Sami Zayn feud in NXT, because that could have easily found its way on this list too.
Yeah, the thing is that had its roots going back so much further back from the WWE. And so when, he was on exactly one episode of NXT before that big swerve happened. So to the audience at home watching, if they're and you got to figure the vast majority of them were kind of exclusively, or not exclusively, but mainly WWE. I'm not sure how many people followed their friendship.
Oh, exploits in PWG,
exactly.
Ring of Honor,
were able
stuff.
to keep up with all. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people did.
Well, I mean, WWE did a good job with their video packages highlighting their backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not like with Owens Jericho, where we got to see the
months
inception
and months
of
their relationship,
of the actual relationship.
Yeah.
Number 8.
8.
Evolution gives Randy Orton the thumbs down.
I just watched this again because I hadn't watched it for a while. It was so well done.
It's so well done.
A little backstory. Randy Orton, of course, he's a third generation wrestler,
son of Cowboy Bob Orton,
correct,
who was the son of Billy Bob Orton. No, I forget. Probably know who he is too.
So Randy joined Evolution January 2003. Sorry,
right,
when he returned from a shoulder injury. And then by the following summer, the next summer,
Bob Orton Sr.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Okay.
Orton beat Chris Benoit at SummerSlam 2004 for the World Heavyweight Championship. The following night on Raw, Benoit and Orton had a rematch. And at the end of that match, Evolution comes out, distracts the ref, helps Orton get out of the crossface.
Yeah.
Orton hits the RKO, gets the win. So all of Evolution comes into the ring to celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
And Orton's thanking everybody. Batista lifts him up on his shoulders. Triple H is standing in front of him saying, "You're the man.
Yeah.
You're the man."
Yeah.
And he brings one hand down and just slowly does this.
Oh.
And Orton cut to him and he just goes, he's still happy until he sees Triple H's thumb go down. He goes, "Fuck."
Yeah.
And then Triple H says, "Drop him." Batista drops Orton. They beat the hell out of him.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Get him all bloody.
Juices.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And, of course, the impetus was, you're supposed to be the future. You're not now.
Yes.
Who are you to hoist this title?
Yep.
When Triple H, the game is right here.
I know that launched a feud between Orton and Triple H.
It's my title. And
it was about a year later, probably less than that, after Batista won the Rumble.
Yeah.
They kind of did the mirror image of this.
Oh, it was great. Yeah.
Where Triple H was trying to get Batista to go for the SmackDown belt rather than the Raw belt, because Triple H had the Raw belt.
Right.
And so they have a ceremony in the ring where Batista makes up his mind. I think he has a clipboard for SmackDown and one for Raw.
So
he's holding the SmackDown one and doing thumbs up.
Yeah.
And then Triple H is happy, and then Batista does this. And Triple H gets scared.
Yeah, it gets freaked out because now he has to face his animal, Batista, who is grown into. That was one of the most, that whole thing was really, really well executed. And especially, talk about a great face turn for Batista. Because I remember watching that, and I wasn't like a huge Evolution guy because I always thought Batista was like kind of a meathead. Randy Orton just seemed like a prick, which was completely why his character was so great.
Yeah.
Because he really did come off like a prick. And it was, my thing about Evolution also was that they just seemed really cheesy. Like their video package was them in a limo with a bunch of women.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was one step away from being like, an orgy going on.
Yeah.
It was just kind of gross. But I do very distinctly remember, like, they established their roles perfectly. That Orton thing was done really, really well. And Batista had gotten to the level where, man, he really had to get on his own. And now we know, like in retrospect, we know that Batista had the ability to perform in that role and the complexities it sort of demanded on the pro wrestling level. to perfection because he's a really good actor.
Yes.
Like he's in the shit that he's in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's very charismatic on the screen. He's fantastic. He has an amazing sense of comedy. But it's also pretty wide ranging.
Yes.
And so to see his transformation and the shit that he went to arrive to that decision, and it was typical wrestling soap opera stuff, but it was still really, really played well. And to see Triple H losing the grasp of power that he had, and then Ric Flair gets torn between them, it was really, really, and it basically launched a star out of both Batista and Orton. Like it launched them into the stratosphere, and look at what happened to them.
And of course, the Orton getting expelled from Evolution was definitely not the first time Triple H had turned on somebody.
Oh, right, yeah,
and it wouldn't be the last.
No, absolutely not. We're gonna get to that a little bit later. Number 7.
7.
Macho Man and Hulk Hogan, brother.
The Mega Powers Explode. That was the subtitle of WrestleMania 5, which was the blow-off of their feud, which lasted
from October of '87 till from October of '87 is when they formed.
Yes,
and they lasted. They dissolved in February of '89.
Yes,
so it's funny because like when I was reading up on this this storyline, it always cracks me up how like at Mania they had their blow off, but then Macho Man enlisted the aid of Zeus
the following SummerSlam
for SummerSlam. I just like that one story element took them from Mania to SummerSlam. Like that's a long time.
It's 4 months, yeah.
Yeah, it's 4 months. And it's like one thing. Like that's how long storylines just were elongated back then because there's not like a weekly Raw and a weekly SmackDown.
No, back then there wasn't.
The Mega Powers officially formed October 3rd, 1987. It was a Saturday night main event back when it was on like network TV.
NBC.
Savage was turning face, and he was trying to capture the IC title from the Honky Tonk Man. The Hart Foundation came in, started beating up Randy Savage. Miss Elizabeth freaked out, went backstage, came back with the Hulkster, brother. And then they did the thing.
Yeah, shook hands.
The handshake.
And then fast forward to WrestleMania 4. They had a tournament for the WWF Championship. The finals were Macho Man, DiBiase. Earlier, Hogan had a match against Andre in the tournament that I think ended in a double countout.
Okay.
So both of them were out of the tournament. During the main event, Hogan comes out, helps Macho Man win the belt.
Yeah.
So from that WrestleMania, almost an entire year later, February 3rd, 1989, on NBC's the main event, not Saturday Night Main Event, the main event. They had a match against the Twin Towers, and during the match, Akeem threw Savage out of the ring and hit Miss Elizabeth, and they knocked her out.
Yeah. Then Hogan gets up, and he carries Elizabeth from the ring back to the medical area,
leaving Savage in the ring by himself.
Yeah, who got pissed off. Hogan came back out. Savage refused to tag Hogan in, who was offering his services.
And Macho Man grabbed his world title and left.
That's right. Then I think that at that point they cut to commercial, and when they came back to it, Hogan was back in the medical area checking on, all three of them were in the medical area checking on Miss Elizabeth, and Macho Man was yelling at Hulk Hogan, saying, just laying into him, saying, essentially they had sort of set this thing up so that Macho Man was starting to get suspicious about.
Well, he was super jealous of Hogan's relationship with Elizabeth because Elizabeth had started to kind of become Hogan's manager as well as Macho Man's. And you saw the WWE Macho Man documentary.
Really good.
Yeah, they touch on all of this, how Macho Man was really super jealous.
You know what's funny? I'm glad you brought that up because like some of the shit that he would do from their description of it was like downright fucking abusive. You know what I mean? Like he would put her in like a locker room all by herself and just leave her there
when he had his matches.
He had his matches, and like she wasn't allowed to come out.
Yep.
And like, it sounded like he was like crazy possessive. Like, could you imagine being like romantically linked to like a dude like the Macho Man, and then he's like crazy possessive over you? So it's like not a happy time, but it's also Macho Man. You know what I mean? Like he already seems kind of crazy. I mean, I'm just kind of crazy. But yeah, anyways, that led to and then, during that scene,
Macho Man
attacks
decks Hogan
with the title.
Yeah.
And then mounts him and starts laying into him. So the Mega Powers
explode.
Number 6.
6.
Triple H joins the corporation.
So following the events of WrestleMania 14, when Shawn Michaels lost the WWF Championship to Stone Cold.
What?
And because he had a legit back injury, he retired more or less.
So that left Triple H to pick up the pieces of Degeneration X, the very, very popular franchise with lots of great merchandise and catchphrases.
Yes. So he and DX more or less turned face the following night. He brought in X-Pac and New Age Outlaws. Maybe it wasn't exactly that night because I remember correctly the main event in that Raw was the Outlaws versus Foley and Funk.
And Funk, yeah.
Who were faces. So
but
anyways,
they were all standing tall in the ring at the end.
Yeah, but they eventually made the transition to become faces.
Yeah.
Because DX, when it was Triple H and Michaels, was a popular but a heel faction.
Yeah, they were a heel faction. And they definitely, DX definitely went in the direction of lovable troublemakers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then through most of 1998, they had various feuds, including with the Nation of Domination, and towards the end of '98 with the Corporation.
Yeah, and they were super over.
Yes.
Like they were definitely. It was like Stone Cold, The Rock, to a degree, Mankind, but he was popular a little bit after that, just a scotch after that.
Yeah,
but then DX was the big
huge.
one. They were huge.
They were huge. And then during the January 25th, 1999 edition of Raw, China turned on Triple H and joined the corporation. This must have been after the Corporate Rumble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in the following WrestleMania 15, there was a match between Shane McMahon and X-Pac for the European Championship.
Yeah.
And Test came out with Shane. At some point towards the end, China comes out. And then Triple H comes out, and so the commentary team is saying, "Oh, they're out to help X-Pac." Nope. So X-Pac hits the X Factor. China walks on the apron, distracts the ref. Triple H gets in there, gives X-Pac a pedigree.
Yeah.
And then puts Shane on top of X-Pac. Shane gets the win, retains the title.
Nice.
And for more or less the next 8 years, Triple H was a heel.
Yeah. And then eventually he reformed DX, but it was just with Shawn Michaels, who at that point had come back and became a sort of a prude because he was a religious man, so he wouldn't do he would do his crotch chop up here instead.
Yeah.
And they made light of it, they made fun of it, but it was actually still a lot of fun.
Sorry, go ahead.
But the interesting thing about this too is that in Triple H's documentary, was it called Thy Kingdom Come, I think?
Yes.
On the network, you can check it out. The other members of DX, I'm pretty sure it was Road Dogg or might have been Billy Gunn, but they were like, man, we had a good thing going. Why are we going to do this now?
I know.
But, it really did. It's like, you have to appreciate a lot about Triple H, but one is his understanding that, it's either change or die in that business. You're either going to grow stale, and it's like he was really threatening, or I would imagine that he was thinking, if I keep doing this, I'm just going to be the comedy thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I need to do something to keep myself fresh. I need an edge.
Yeah.
And so he did that, and then it was kind of funny because he joined the corporation, and then very shortly after that, the corporation joined up with the ministry, and Triple H for a second there was kind of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but you have the Undertaker and then the ministry, and then I remember watching the episode where they were sort of out there in full force, and Triple H is in China are just sort of milling around in the background. I'm like, man, that dude is he should be threatening to be a main eventer soon.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he did. He was able to rise through the ranks and become.
Well, the following WrestleMania was the four-corner main event.
Yes.
Which was Triple H, Mankind, The Rock, and Big Show, I believe, with a McMahon in each corner.
Yeah.
So eventually the corporation split up.
Yeah. You have to appreciate, they always say that, there were we were all sharks back then. Something tells Triple H was the biggest shark there was, because he really did. For a guy who he wasn't ever really great on the mic, he had plenty of charisma, but he had enough charisma to become a big major player but it wasn't like overwhelming. Like The Rock or Stone Cold were like once in a generation, twice in a generation charisma guys. But Triple H through sheer force of will. Like I feel like that's been a lot of his career. He just willed his way to the very top.
As you said, he wasn't the best on the mic. He wasn't the best in the ring.
Right.
I mean, he worked his ass off.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just wanted it that bad.
And there was no. I mean, that was the cool thing about him is that there was no. That's why I always liked him, because he was just the dude who would do anything to win, and he would never take no. You know, I remember being pissed when Jericho beat him. And then Triple H bullied his way back to getting the belt. I remember being legit pissed, and I was like a big fan of his. But, you know, thinking about it now, I'm like, man, he really did his job as a heel. There has never been, I sincerely think there's never been another heel like Triple H. He was like sort of the last of like that type.
When HBK came back, Triple H more or less turned on him immediately.
Like
right?
immediately, yeah. That's a big betrayal too.
Yeah.
Triple H's entire, like, he just turns on people left and right. It's great.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Number 5. The Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. So December. I love this. How much would you love to get in a freaking time machine and go to Christmas night, 1982, and witness the birth of the Freebird Von Erich feud, when Kerry Von Erich taking on Ric Flair in a steel cage
for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
The crowd just fever pitch. Like, they love their Von Erichs.
Yes.
They wanted him to have that belt.
Yes.
And the fans voted Michael Hayes in as a second ref. Sort of an enforcer ref.
Yeah, kind of an enforcer. Leading up to this match, I don't believe there had been any feud going on between the Freebirds and the Von Erichs.
No,
in fact,
the Freebirds were the faces. They were faces.
In fact, David Von Erich, earlier in the night, helped the Freebird win the WCCW six-man tag team championships.
Okay, all right, the trios belt.
Yes.
So no, they were definitely the second hottest act behind the Von Erichs.
Yeah.
So this made total sense. But anyways, like, you can check out, they have the match online, like on YouTube or the network or something like that. And it's almost kind of comical to see, like, just how, like, it's just the most 1982 match I've ever seen.
I know, and Hayes takes his role as enforcer very seriously.
It's great. It is so great because he's got jeans, no shirt, and just that amazing hair. And, you know, he was, I mean, he wasn't a hoss, but he had like old man, like, fit gut.
Yeah.
Like he had a fit belly.
Yeah.
You know? Like it was a solid belly.
Yeah, exactly. It was a belly, but firm.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a muscle belly.
And he flips his hair
constantly.
Constantly. And anyways, towards the end of the match, towards the finish of the match, so he brings Terry Gordy? Yeah, Terry Gordy out there with him.
And Gordy stays on the outside of the ring.
Right. A sort of the enforcer. And Hayes is all over Flair. Hayes is all like, he's like, every time Flair gets Kerry Von Erich in any sort of, like, you know, up against the ropes, like, Hayes is there to pull him off, to say, okay, separate. So he's very active. Anyways, let's see here. Kerry won't. Oh yeah, he punches Flair at one point, and then gets angry that Kerry Von Erich isn't going to go grab the easy pin. Then Kerry sort of is he like trying to get out of the cage? Is that what happens?
Yeah,
there?
I believe so.
Okay, and Terry Gordy just murders Kerry Von Erich's head with the cage door, and people start freaking out. Hayes roughs up the ref and counts the pin. It doesn't stick. The real ref eventually just has to declare Flair the winner due to injury. Kevin Von Erich and David Von Erich come to their brother's aid. And David cuts a promo on Hayes. And it for the next year, it was like every week there in the Sportatorium, it was a different matchup of Von Erich versus Freebird. And it was just a hot rivalry, like an epic rivalry for the ages throughout 1983. And it lasted off and on for a decade. Yeah, the last match between them was April of 1993.
Yep. That's insane.
It says the Von Erichs and Freebirds were selling out the same arenas on a weekly basis for over a year.
That is crazy.
So that's insane. Number 4.
4.
Rollins v. The Shield.
Yeah, so
Plan B. Took
he
the
was
Plan B
B.
pill.
Yep. So a brief history of the Shield.
Mm-hmm.
The group debuted November 18th, 2012 at Survivor Series to help CM Punk retain the WWE Championship against John Cena and Ryback. They powerbombed Ryback through the announce table.
Mm-hmm.
They did that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were, they served as CM Punk's muscle for a while.
Right.
And then feuded with the Wyatts, feuded with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then they eventually turned face after WrestleMania 30, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
Where there was some attack on them, and Kane revealed that Triple H was behind the attack. And that led to a match between the Shield, 2 matches actually between the Shield and Evolution. The second one at Payback was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, really
Seth
good.
Rollins with that spot off the top, like he did in that Raw a month or 2 back, where he climbed up top where the entryway into the arena was and did a splash on Evolution.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Really good match if you hadn't seen it. Following that on Raw, Batista leaves Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, Shield's all in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Triple H comes out with Sledgehammer and Randy Orton.
Yeah.
And Triple H more or less says, I always have a plan. I always have a plan B.
Yeah.
All the while, I believe Seth Rollins got a chair to begin.
Picked up a chair
segment.
because Triple H had a sledgehammer. Yeah.
And so while Triple H is talking, they cut back to the Shield, and Seth Rollins is kind of moving back slightly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A little bit here and there. Just a little
Yeah.
bit. Until Triple H teases something's going to happen. Cut back to the ring. Rollins destroys Roman Reigns in the back with a chair.
It's great.
Ambrose turns around, shocked.
It was so well done on the part of Ambrose because he didn't turn around. It was like if I remember correctly, it was like he knew it was happening in his periphery.
Yeah.
Like the look of it dawning on him as to what's happening was priceless.
Yeah, because he came to the realization and did a slow turn.
Yeah, he did a slow turn, exactly.
And then Rollins hits him with the chair.
Exactly, yeah. It was just so well done. It was like Ambrose really like sold the moment and the complexities, and like he's processing everything that's happening in the moment, and it's all in his face, and the camera work was great too. And then so Rollins then became the golden boy for the Authority.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it was good. The following June, he claimed the Money in the Bank briefcase with Kane's help, and would later cash that in at WrestleMania 31.
Yeah. I mean, one of the really good things about this too is that they didn't let the Shield linger too long.
I know they were at their peak of popularity.
So at that point, it was all. It would have been within another month. It would have been outstaying their welcome just a little bit. Within a couple months, anyways.
Yeah.
It would have been how long?
Because they were just a couple months into a face turn.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So they were like white hot.
Yeah.
And they did this at the peak of their popularity, and the WWE doesn't do that very often.
No.
Usually they.
I always kind of wondered if Daniel Bryan hadn't gotten hurt, if they would have done this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because this happened shortly after Daniel Bryan had to vacate the title.
Yeah, that's right.
Missed a year.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what their plans were for Daniel Bryan.
Apart from feuding with Kane.
Yeah, that still bugs me. Like, he comes out the next night on Raw, and Kane? Really?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, no good. All right, number 3.
3.
HBK destroys the Rockers. Or Marty Jannetty. Puts Marty Jannetty through a fucking plate glass window.
Yeah, on Brutus Beefcake's barbershop.
That's right. So in early 1986, Marty Jannetty and a cat named Shawn Michaels, they were signed by Vern Gagne's AWA and became the Rockers. Now, I like this little. I was reading into their early history because it cracks me up. Greg Gagne, the son of Vern Gagne, suggested the name the Country Rockers. Another idea for a name was the U.S. Express. And then
finally they decided on the Midnight Rockers, inspired by Judas Priest Living After Midnight.
Which is a good name. It's cool. And Judas Priest is cool.
Yeah.
Vern Gagne, the AWA owner, did not seem to understand the idea. He is quoted as wondering if fans might confuse the name with rocking chairs but let the team go ahead and use the name. There's two things that I love about that sentence right there. Number one, Vern Gagne was old as shit. Like, he was probably, like, still threatening to be the world champion at this point.
I know.
But he was still old as shit. And so I love the fact that he probably didn't, like, if he heard Judas Priest, it would just be like noise, you know? It'd be like if I listen to fucking Skrillex or something. And I love that he let them use the name anyways, because he might have been old as shit, but if you can acknowledge that you're old as shit and still understand that, well, the young kids will get it, then that's cool.
That's smart business.
That's good business.
So eventually the Rockers made their way to WWF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They started having issues between each other.
Apparently it was about money.
Yeah. So
this is behind the scenes.
Yeah, all this behind the scenes stuff. This is not like, so
in HBK's book, there's some, there's kind of some he said stuff going on.
Right,
here.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no definitive answer.
But it kind of comes down to either Michaels or Jannetty, depending on who you believe, was talking to WCW about and potentially signing with them, leaving WWE.
Yeah.
Jannetty says that Michaels was one behind this. And I believe Michael says Jannetty was the one that was behind this.
Right.
At one point, Vince agreed to let them go, and then Sean then went to McMahon and said, "Oh no, this was Marty's idea. I don't want to leave." He
said, "I didn't know anything about this."
Yeah,
exactly. So who knows if it was HBK like pulling these strings or whatever? Like, I don't know. It's so weird. Like, I don't know. I could never imagine myself doing that.
I know.
To somebody. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy to me. I know. That's so weird.
So apparently they, in the end, decided that the Rockers would break up and that Shawn Michaels would turn heel.
Yeah.
And that culminated on camera on Brutus Beefcake's barbershop segment when Shawn Michaels and Jannetty, they got on the show. It seemed like they were working things out a little bit.
Yeah, even though Shawn Michaels was dressed exclusively in black leather.
Yeah, I know.
It was like that, dude. If you and I show up on Big Jim's barbershop set, to work out our differences, and you're wearing all black leather, I'm probably gonna be like, I'm going to just chill for a second and see where this...
I'm going to step away from this window over here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, there's a plate glass window. I'm going to stay away from that right there.
Marty Jannetty did not do that because he received a super kick and then HBK threw him through the window.
Yeah. That was great.
Igniting what was supposed to be a feud, but Jannetty had to leave WWF for personal reasons, and they eventually did have a match, I believe, like a couple of years later. And Jannetty won the Intercontinental title off HBK.
He came back and but Marty Jannetty. It's kind of sad because Marty Jannetty is always. I think we've even had that question in our QA things. People have said who's Shawn Michaels and who's Marty Jannetty out of the two of us, and it's like nobody. It's sad. Nobody wants to be the Marty Jannetty. Because HBK, one of the best, if not the best in-ring performer
ever,
not named AJ Styles. And so, it's interesting, though. I saw a shoot interview where they brought that up to Jannetty and said, how do you feel about being the namesake of that particular phrase? And he says, he seems to be at peace with it, but then sometimes in shoot interviews lately, he looks kind of messed up, too. So I don't know if he is actually at peace with it. But he said he views it as, Shawn couldn't have been Shawn without me. And he said, be it Shawn Michaels or I think Al Snow he was teamed with, and Al Snow as the New Rockers. Al Snow went on to greater success.
Yeah.
And then I think there was one other, and I forget who it is off the top of my head, but he says, if I'm the guy who can help launch other people to greater success, then so be it. I'm fine being that Marty Jannetty. So that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's just I saw a shoot interview, I think it was like 2015 or something, and he just looked out of his mind, which is sad. I know, I'm pretty sure he's still wrestling these days. He made several comebacks to the WWF and WWE
and WCW.
Yeah. So he's always been working in the industry. It's one of those things you really hope that if looks are to be believed, he can kind of maybe you don't want to hear about another wrestler dying like earlier than they should.
Yeah.
And you don't want that to happen. So hopefully Marty is treating himself the way, he should be.
Yes.
Number 2.
2.
Larry Zbyszko turns on Bruno Sammartino. The student takes on the teacher.
Didn't you tell me that
Yes.
Larry Zbyszko became a wrestler because he found his way in Bruno Sammartino's backyard or something like that?
That was Larry Zbyszko in his Hall of Fame speech, in his very long Hall of Fame speech, said, I found myself in Bruno Sammartino's backyard, and then he took me in and made me a wrestler. I don't know if that's a metaphor or symbolism. Something tells me, just, having watched and listened to Larry Zbyszko over the past 20 years of watching pro wrestling stuff, wouldn't surprise me if he was literally just milling about in Bruno's backyard for some reason. I have no idea why he'd just be in his backyard. Anyway, Zbyszko became Bruno's protege. And he got around 1980. He started to get tired, storyline-wise, of being in Bruno's shadow. Bruno is the winningest guy ever.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. And so he challenged Sammartino to an exhibition match, claiming this is the only way he can get out of Sammartino's shadow.
Yeah, Bruno said okay to the match.
He said, I do it now, yes. Bruno sounds a lot like Arnold.
Yeah. Apparently Zbyszko said he would retire if he wasn't granted this exhibition match. And the exhibition match went down January 22nd, 1980 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, I guess. And Bruno, being the teacher, and one of the, the top wrestlers of his time.
Oh, yeah.
Had the upper hand.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so...
It was Bruno.
Yeah. So Larry, apparently tired of not only being the protege, but getting his ass beat, went out, got a chair.
Yeah.
And hit Bruno with it.
Oh, yeah. Left him lying in a pool of blood. People started hating Zbyszko because of that.
This is crazy. So apparently people dislike Zbyszko so much that his car was repeatedly damaged.
Mm-hmm.
He was hit with an iron pole following a match and then stabbed in his butt following a match with Pedro Morales in Albany, New York.
Yeah. It's great.
That's back when heels got real heel heat.
That's real heel heat right there, man. When you're getting stabbed in your butt, if somebody's trying to make another asshole, on you, then Zbyszko started referring to himself as the new living legend.
And Sammartino and Zbyszko feuded up until August 9th of 1980.
Mm-hmm.
They had their feud culminated in a match. At the Showdown at Shea inside a steel cage, and Bruno picked up the win. Yeah,
I like this too. Zbyszko left the WWF in 1981, and he started feuding with Bruno's son David. I wonder if he had more luck against David, or if he needed a wooden chair for that too. Zbyszko's great. Number 1. Hulk Hogan joins the NWO. This was just huge.
It was shocking.
The greatest good guy in the history of professional wrestling became its biggest bad guy monster by joining the NWO.
So a little backstory. Hall, Nash began their kind of invasion of WCW.
Yeah.
And they said to Bischoff, we're going to have a match. We're going to have a match. Pick 3 of your finest WCW competitors. We got a third guy. It's a mystery who it is, but we'll have a match and beat you.
Yeah.
And so WCW held a draw to determine the competitors, and it was Lex Luger, Sting, and Macho Man. Now, Hogan, during his time in WCW, he signed about 3 years prior, had history with all those guys in terms of collaborating and teaming up with them, because Hogan teamed up with Luger, Sting, and Savage in late 1995 against the Dungeon of Doom, and then Hogan teamed up with Savage again at Uncensored 96, taking on the Alliance to End Hulkamania in that triple layer Doomsday cage match.
Which was pretty rad. Here's my thing about the name The Alliance to End Hulkamania.
Well, first of all, it's way too long.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that if you're going to have a name that long, make it into a cool anagram.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't know what you could do with that. A-T-E. I mean, that just says 8H.
Yeah, doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
So, anyways, the match starts and Team WCW comes out, but only Hall and Nash come out. Their third man, their mystery third man, doesn't come out with them.
Who's the third man?
Who's the third man?
Yeah.
So, the match goes back and forth. Play-by-play team keeps on talking about the third man. Who is this third man?
Yeah.
So, at one point, Nash gives Macho Man a low blow.
Right.
And that is when Hogan, who has a long history of teaming with, especially Macho Man, but also Luger and Sting, walks down to the ring. And crowd goes wild.
Oh, yeah.
The announcers think, okay, Hogan's out here to help Team WCW.
Yeah.
He gets in the ring, drops a leg on Macho Man.
Yeah.
Joins the NWO.
Garbage starts flying
my
everywhere.
gosh.
So much garbage in that ring. It was great. This is really interesting because, and Hogan basically gave himself a second career.
Yes.
Because he lasted, it was from 96, he lasted till, 2000. He was on until like for another 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah. Because at this point, Hulkamania was...
It was dying. And this was interesting about this, is that you're absolutely right. When Hogan comes down, the crowd pops. They weren't popping for Hogan back then, but Hall and Nash brought such heat that they wanted to see these guys get beat down by WCW guys. And so when Hogan came in, there was all that stuff that like Bischoff would say and a couple other guys would say about how if Hogan got cold feet, it was going to be Sting.
Yeah.
And so there was the very real possibility that Hogan was not going to come out there at the last minute. He wasn't going to come out there. And so it makes me wonder, man, I wonder if Hogan if it ever ran across his head, man, they're popping for me again. I could still be a good guy. I don't want to do this.
Literally on the way out.
Yeah, exactly. On the way out, exactly. Do you imagine? Like, I would not put it past Hulk Hogan to go out there, see the reaction he got, and then just start laying in a Hall and Nash and ruin everything. I would not put it past him.
Not at all.
And then he comes backstage. Didn't feel right, man. Hogan ruined everything.
I'm the man.
I'm the man. Oh, man. So, it was absolutely shocking. Like I said, it gave Hogan a second career. And it's honestly, it's kind of a blueprint for how they should go with John Cena. He can have a whole... I mean, John Cena doesn't need a second career. His second career is going to be a big Hollywood star.
Yep.
But if they really want to extend his life in the WWE and make it interesting and put even more guys over...
make him a heel.
Make him a heel. I mean, it's funny. He does heel things sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Talk shit about AJ Styles.
Yeah.
He's a heel in my heart if you're going to do that.
I know.
Anyways, be sure to let us know what your favorite betrayals are in the comments below.
Yes, please.
And, check out yesterday's count out where we talk about the grossest injuries.
Most shocking,
grossest injuries.
wrestling injuries.
Professional wrestling. Until then, we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.